men like to laugh about our mood swings, and I like to laugh and joke and say I can induce that in you. If you guys think it's so funny, I can,
I don't think it's
do
funny
that.
at all.
Just for the record, they said that they needed to card anyone that looked under 40. So not 21, but under 40.
Okay, well, they didn't ask me for my ID, and I'm 2 years younger than you. What's up, everybody? Chad at Indie Fitness here on the podcast All Roads Lead to the Gym. We got myself, Chad, and we got Nicholas Otto Assad as usual. I finally talked my beautiful bride, Julie, into coming and being a guest host today. Julie Dunham, and I'm over here banging my phones after I just told everybody not to bang stuff.
The Gym's Foundation.
So I'm the face of the place. Julie is the brains behind all of this. She's the one that makes everything mesh and go together and keeps the doors open, and I just smile and lift weights. And then our special guest today is Haley Schultheis. She is a nurse practitioner, has a business downtown, Independence, that we're going to talk a lot about today. During that talk, we're going to talk about how it can affect your health, how it can affect your fitness, just by checking into your hormones. And she's just very, very intelligent when it comes to these things. So she's the expert on it today. And so we will hear from her and everything she's got going on. Otto, what's been going on with you? Anything?
Same stuff, man. Same stuff. Running the gym. That's about it.
The manager of Indie Fitness, Nicholas
the glorified
Otto,
janitor.
Who doesn't really clean that much, but he's a really good manager.
Yeah.
All right. So, Julie, what about you? Are you excited to be here on the podcast today?
Well, since I just knew I was coming on last night, no, I'm maybe a little bit nervous, but kind of excited. So we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, she'll be great. Haley, let's just get into it today. Why don't you just kind of tell us who you are, a little bit about your business and how you got into that.
Gosh, okay. Well, as Chad said, my name is Haley Schultheis. I am a family nurse practitioner, which means by licensure and certification, I can take care of people from birth to death. So I started my career in family medicine, which means you really have to know a little bit about everything. It's kind of like an ER. You never know what's going to walk through the door. But as I was getting comfortable in that role, I had an opportunity to train bioidentical hormones, which is a lot about what we're going to talk about today. And at first, I was very resistant. I said, no way, no how. I'm not touching hormones with a 10-foot pole. Hormones cause cancer. Not doing that. But a colleague of mine was like, Haley, I really think you should reconsider this. This is really kind of your philosophy on how you practice medicine. So I did. I went to Texas and I trained on bioidentical hormones. So hormones that are biologically identical to the hormones that a human naturally produces, specifically testosterone in men and women and estradiol and progesterone in women as well. So I went and trained, and I slowly started incorporating that into my family medicine practice, and it truly changed everything because I was able to see that what I was learning was truly impacting my patients' lives in a positive way. So I have what I call geeked out on all things hormones and wellness over the past 5 years until ultimately I was in a place where I wanted to do just this. I wanted to do just hormones and wellness. So I did branch out on my own in March of 2023. I took a massive leap of faith and left a guaranteed paycheck every 2 weeks. And I launched in downtown Independence, rented a small 170 square foot office space inside a co-working community at Founders Place. And I launched my business really just doing bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, wellness, and medically supervised weight management. And long story short, things have drastically changed. I grew really quickly. So from March to August of 2023, it was me by myself. I was doing everything. I was a one-man show, legal, marketing, accounting. I was drawing labs on my patients. I was resulting those. I was doing procedures. I was truly doing it all. And then
a
my
lot.
whole world changed.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, it was a good time. And then in August of last year, I brought on my first full-time staff member. Her name's April. So she is our spa coordinator, and she changed everything, just having somebody there to help me. And then together, her and I really kind of started building towards the future. And we outgrew the space that we were in inside the Founders Place really quickly. So we knew we had to do something different. So I set out trying to find the perfect location to branch out and have something on my own, and bought a building in October of last year, 209 North Penn in downtown Independence, directly across the street from Dickies and Empire Barbershop. And that was a space that was, it had sat vacant for a long time, and it was ugly. I'll just say it. It was ugly. It had god awful pink carpet. It smelled terrible, and only the first half of the building was done. So it was kind of a big task, but I took it on. Bought the building in October of last year. Started construction in January. I was actually the recipient of a $100,000 grant through the state of Kansas to rehab the building. So that really helped a lot. So started construction in January, and then on March 20th of this year, a year to the date that I launched inside Founders Place, we opened at 209 North Penn in our beautifully renovated 3,000 square foot space. And so by having additional space, I was able to bring on my second staff member, Lauren, who is an esthetician. So she gets to do all that kind of fun stuff. She takes care of the skin, which allows me to focus on more of what I love, which is bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. I manage a lot of thyroid. I do medically supervised weight management. I do IV therapy, and really just wellness with what I call a holistic approach. I try to help people heal the body from the inside out. So that's a little bit of my background, and we can dive into the specifics
Well,
as you see fit today.
That's a lot.
That was aggressive.
Yeah, that's me.
We know
I dig it.
also,
That's cool.
Julie and I had ran this gym by ourselves for months, and it was 7 days a week, and we were like, we got to figure some kind of, and we were both just here. There was so much to do in the beginning. As you know, when you start a business, there's so much to
But
do
it's so rewarding.
that we were here together all the time.
Yeah.
Like neither one of us ever had a day off. So we had to figure that out. And so it's cool. It's fun to grow like that, but it's also like growing pains are tough to get through.
Sure.
So when we talked here a couple weeks ago about you being on the podcast, I said that I keep catching. Last week we had a therapist on, and she said that the three that were in here, we set guarded
We're
all
like
the
holding
time.
ourselves up in the chair.
She's like, just relax.
Relax a
And
little bit.
I'm
It's
trying to
hard.
relax. You know, Julie's over here
to sit
holding
with good
herself up
posture.
too.
Yeah.
I'm always
Haley's
guarded.
just over here like chilling, like, what's up? But when we talked about it, I told you that I have been on TRT, that's testosterone replacement therapy, for several years now. And it seems to be that a lot of people don't want to talk about it.
Right.
I am very open and honest about it. I had gotten to a point in my life where I had weighed over 300 pounds and had just basically destroyed my testosterone production through really bad lifestyle choices, and slowly, well, I say slowly, I quickly got into fitness and was all in 100%, and got to a point where my body just couldn't get any stronger. I just had no energy. I was tired. There was a lot of factors, and so someone had mentioned testosterone to me, and I started looking into it, and there was a list of symptoms, and I told you this in a message. I was just like, check, check, and I all of them.
Right.
I hit all of them. And so I went and got my T levels checked, and they were extremely low. I know at the very, very bottom of the range. And we'll talk about how you talk a little bit about this, but the range for testosterone is very
Massive.
wide, right?
It's ridiculous.
It's too high, or too wide, in my
Very
opinion.
wide range. Yeah.
And so I got on TRT, where I take testosterone cypionate once a week, and it has the number one decision in my life for
love
my
that.
health.
I love that for you.
I think that there's decisions I've made about getting, losing weight by cardio and exercise and then lifting weights, and all those things were very, very beneficial to my health. But the testosterone replacement therapy was a true game changer.
Sure.
For someone, I think I was around 44, 45 years old when I started. I'm 50 now, so I've been on it for, 5 or 6 years. I really don't remember the date. I remember wanting to convince my wife that this was the thing to do, and it reminds me of when our son wanted to join the National Guard. He did all this pre-planning before he came to us and presented it. So I did all this thought, all this planning and research, and then I came to her, and she's like, "Yeah, if you want to do it, do it." Like it was.
Go for it.
It was like not a real big argument. There was no argument, in fact.
It was the summer of 2018.
Okay. That's my wife.
Yeah.
Rain Man.
Approximately 4:23.
I think it was July
It was
27th.
It was definitely
at
in the
about
evening.
4:30.
It was in the evening.
So
I
what
remember.
she's saying is her life changed too. That's why she
Oh, I'm
knows.
sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, so let's talk a little bit about. Let's start with men's health.
Awesome.
Since I brought it up, the testosterone replacement therapy. Your thoughts on the range and kind of what those ranges are and how you find those things out and what services you have.
I want to start by acknowledging the sentiment that, you were kind of hesitant. And then, at first, testosterone, it is something that has a stigma. And it's something that men in particular don't want to talk about. And you talked about the symptoms checklist. So that's one of the things that I really want to hit on, because I think that with testosterone specifically, people hear testosterone and they immediately go to sexual performance. And so men in particular don't want to talk about that until they see that symptoms checklist, and it's absolutely more than just sexual performance. The vast majority of my patients will say that that's just a bonus, because it really is those other things, the quality of life kind of issues that people really struggle with. So there's that, and then you really kind of wanted me to talk about the range. So the range for normal, which I always say normal when I say that, because where does that lab reference range of normal come from? Mm-hmm. So it's specific to different labs, but generally speaking, the lab reference range of normal for a testosterone is somewhere between 200 and 1100. And kind of like what you said, I'm like, that's crazy. So you mean to tell me that you can be 999 or you can be 201 and you're normal? It doesn't matter if you have symptoms. If the lab says you're normal, you're normal. Mm-hmm. And so I often say, very back to the very beginning of my training, when I was a nurse, we're taught to treat the patient, not the monitor. So if you walk into a room and a patient's lips are blue and they're really struggling to breathe, but the oxygen monitor says their oxygen is 100%, which are you going to treat? Are you going to treat your patient or the monitor? And so I really kind of adopt that philosophy when managing hormones in men and women. Just because the paper says your number is normal, but you can't sleep, you're tired all the time, you have low energy, your joints hurting, you can't sexually perform, you have memory fog, you have all these symptoms, the last thing I'm going to do is say, well, I'm so sorry, you're normal. To me, that's medical gaslighting 101. Sorry, you're normal. So the range is definitely not something that is an adequate indicator of
I just
whether or
want
not.
to say a couple things. What I thought of when I heard testosterone was steroids.
Sure.
And then after doing some research, knowing that testosterone's, at least the cypionate is made from like wild yams. It's not the same as like a anabolic steroid. In fact, the one writer wrote it's the difference between lightning and a lightning bug.
Sure.
They're not the same thing.
Not quite the same. I mean, technically, an anabolic steroid is going to be something that causes growth. And in essence, sure, testosterone does do that. But when it's managed correctly, which is my job and something that I'm really passionate about, it can be done safely. Now, again, there's a very fine line there in making sure that it's managed appropriately and that we're not kind of misusing it, because it is often misused for growth purposes.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what an anabolic is something to cause growth. So it can be misused.
I know that
in
it can be misused, but it's not the same
Not
as
the same, yeah.
as the things that are bought on the black market that
Right.
are illegal
Right.
and very harmful to your liver and your kidneys and a lot of different aspects
Right.
of your life, and anabolic steroids can also have a very adverse effect on your sex life as well. Where
If not managed appropriately.
right. So
So
Go ahead.
You see cases like Chad all the time since you started this, right? Like someone
Oh, yeah.
walks in and they're
Every day.
one person, and then they do this, and they come in later on and they're like, "Yeah, you changed my life," and that's why you do it, right?
That's what fueled my passion.
Yeah.
Really, it was when I was truly able to see the impacts of my efforts changing people's lives, and that's what made me wanted to follow this path. Because at first, like I said, I didn't want to touch it, but my passion really started particularly with peri and postmenopausal women. I do treat both men and women, love doing both, but my passion was really fueled with women who would say, you know, Haley, thank you, you changed my life.
Yeah.
And my men's health practice, really, even still, the male patients that I do treat are typically the spouses to female patients of mine, because all of a sudden I get her optimized, and then guess who can't keep up? So he's got to come see me
Oh, that's
also.
fire.
Yeah.
I love
you know,
it.
and I wanted the second thing I wanted to talk about was you said that the sexual benefits are kind of secondary to the health
Sure.
benefits, but I want to talk to the men, and I'm very comfortable having uncomfortable
Sure,
conversations.
me too. Every day.
And-
Talk
I know
about sex
that's-
every day.
I know that's right.
Every
But
day.
because to a lot of men, they may not want to talk about that,
Right.
but that is certainly on their mind.
Yep.
And I have talked to friends about testosterone who I just had a lot of signs and symptoms that I could see, and we would discuss it, and they would say, well, I don't have a problem in the bedroom. And I would have said the same thing.
Right.
But it's a decline from the age of, I don't know, 25 or 30 to the point where I'm in my mid 40s. And it's, you're talking a 20-year decline,
Right.
a tiny little bit every year. And so you don't even recognize that there is a deficiency until you start the testosterone replacement.
Exactly.
And then you're like, well, I'm 18 again.
So we do a symptoms checklist. Every patient that establishes with me, we start, with a consult. That is step one. And I go through a symptoms checklist. And usually, of course, one of the questions I ask about is sexual performance. Are you able to achieve orgasm? Can you get and maintain an erection? And most of the time, people will say yes. Or I will ask, do you have any erectile changes? And men will often say no. And then that's when I look at them and I say, do you still get morning erections like you did when you were 18? And they're like, well, no, it's not like it once was. Well, that's an erectile change. It's not the same. That tells us that your testosterone is declining. So naturally, a man's testosterone is highest in the early morning hours, which is why, morning wood, I'll just say it. That's why, because naturally testosterone is highest then. So once that's gone or it's changing, you're usually pretty low on that 200 to 1100 range once morning erections do start to change. So, of course, I do gauge for the quality of sex life, but it definitely is more a quality of life kind of thing when people start and they're like, I ask them about their sex life and people are like, are you kidding me? I just told you I don't have any energy and I don't sleep. Sex is the last thing on my mind. So the vast majority of people will say that it's the quality of life and then the sex is just a bonus.
I think it was a game changer all the way around, from the sex life to the gym,
Right.
to the energy, to the sleep, to the confidence, to the self-esteem. I think that it helped my mental health as well
Absolutely.
as it helped
Of course.
my physical health.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
just made me feel better and more confident. And everyone, a lot of people think that I'm the most confident person in the world. That is not true, right, Julie? Like
It's all a show.
yeah.
I think
How
that
about
really a lot of people, what I hear often is people think, well, I just thought I was getting old, Haley. I thought I had one too many birthdays. I just accepted that this was my life. And the vast majority of people can time the onset of their symptoms back to a specific event. And there's actually a physiologic reason for that. But most people can say, Haley, everything was fine until marriage, divorce, the birth of my last child. I had a job change. I lost somebody I loved. And usually, a lot of times, you have a stressful event and then your testosterone declining. It's actually hastened by that process. So, yeah.
So awesome. So we've talked a lot about the men. Now let's talk about the women.
Let's
That's
talk
what
about
you
the
started
ladies.
with, and I think Julie is going to actually come in for a consult coming up this week. I know you can't talk about it. She can.
October 29th at 4 o'clock.
I'll be there.
Oh,
So,
love it.
and this will, what's today's date? Today is the 20th.
20th.
So this will have just aired
Mm-hmm.
when you go in for your consult. And, you know, like, what are you kind of experiencing that's,
So so first of all, I do plan to document the journey through it. I don't know how exactly, because I'm not one that likes to be on camera and all that stuff that much. So we'll see. But I think the biggest thing is that it's probably been about 10 years ago or so, I really started noticing a lot of changes. I just assumed that it was being busy with kids, being busy with career, and a lot of different changes. And they've really increased over the last probably 4 years. So honestly, as much as he's gained energy, mine has waned. And I think I just took it as, oh, well, another career change. Oh, we have the gym. So we're there, even now 5 days a week, compared to most people who have one job and go home. Whether you realize it or not, Chad and I still have our day jobs, as what we tell people. And so, just doing everything. And it was probably about a year ago or so, I really hit the perimenopause stage. And, I keep rolling the dice, hoping menopause is there, and then it's like, nope, not in the cards yet. So I'm at that point where when you have the fluctuations, and can identify it in yourself, and you're like, I don't really like myself today.
So that right there is what fuels my passion. Pretty much everything you just said. And I did say that it was the peri and postmenopausal woman in particular that sparked my love of hormones. And so I do kind of want to back up and talk about, the hormones, because I know that I said that I do replace testosterone in women. And a lot of times people look at me sideways and they're like, no, Haley, I'm a woman. I don't have testosterone. And it's, yes, women absolutely have testosterone,
Yeah,
just
you
like
do.
men have estradiol.
Yeah.
But the obvious answer is estradiol is the predominant female sex hormone, whereas testosterone is the predominant male sex hormone. But we both have healthy balances of each. So I do replace those bioidentically. So it's a little bit different than testosterone cypionate, like we were talking about. I do bioidentical hormones, which means the hormones that I replace with are identical molecularly to the hormones that we naturally produce. And so, yes, those are yam-based, plant-based. Yes, a yam that grows in the ground. It's kind of crazy. But it is a lot of, usually when people come established with me, it is a lot of things like exactly what you just described, Julie. I've just noticed things are just declining. Half the time I can't even stand myself. How is my family supposed to stand me? And women, men like to laugh about our mood swings. And I like to laugh and joke and say, I can induce that in you. If you guys think it's so funny, I can,
I don't think it's
do
funny
that.
at all.
But but it is that rapid shift in hormones that cause us to kind of ride those waves. And now it is true to say that women, and I think that this is a common misconception also, women gauge cycles changing as an indicator of menopausal status. But it's true to say that women and men both will have symptoms up to 10 years before their hormones really start to really decline, because it is kind of insidious. So one of the common questions people ask me is, well, isn't this natural, Haley? Aren't my hormones supposed to decline? Yes. The obvious answer would be yes. Your hormone production does naturally start to decline in your 30s because generally speaking, your sex hormones are responsible for procreation. And, midlife, most of us are done having children. So naturally, hormone production does start to decline. But the issue is we're seeing that happen now at a much more rapid pace. And oftentimes people say, why? It's all around us. It's everything. It's the stuff we eat. It's sedentary lifestyle, which is going to bring to light why it's important to be in the gym to help support our natural hormone production. It's processed foods. It's eating all the sugar. It's heavy metals in our air. It's Teflon coatings on pans. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that everywhere.
Laundry detergent.
Yeah. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that everywhere. Aluminum in your cans, and all of that stuff is absolutely causing hormone production to decline at a much more rapid pace. In fact, there is concern for men being sterile by the year 2050. And it seems kind of hard to wrap your mind around, but I see it now in my practice. I have male patients truly in their 20s who have testosterone that is so low, and men who are having trouble trying to conceive children, and people want to ask why, but the answer is all around us.
Yeah, I know that it is definitely what the men in their, back in the 1920s, I think that their testosterone levels were much higher. Much higher than
But
the
also,
men today.
the foods that you can go to Walmart or the grocery store and find now weren't even foods 100 years ago. And it's like, we all wonder why this is happening, but yet the answer is right in front of us, but we just neglect to see it.
So
and when you think about it, the things that we consume today aren't the things that we consumed 100 years ago.
I would like your opinion on this. One theory that I've heard is that years ago, 100, 200 years ago, men went out and it was the traditional family roles where men went out and hunted and fished
Hunters and
and
gatherers.
cut wood and did all those things.
We ate foods that were naturally occurring.
So the theory that I heard is more of the role of men and women has changed, where when the men had to do that, it was almost like the reason it's low now is because of the evolution of man, where we don't have to go out and hunt and gather. We don't have to fight.
We're wimpy.
Because you've got women to do it all,
We're
huh?
wimpy.
We do it all now, don't we,
And
Julie?
Yeah.
and the women that have problems, you dropped your phone down there. I don't know if you need it or not. The women had the traditional role of staying home and
Right.
taking care of the children and taking care of the home and making sure that everything in the household ran efficiently. That's not reality anymore. No one, even if we wanted to.
Women are winning right now.
Well, even if we wanted to,
They're
we
thriving.
couldn't, because the way the cost of everything, and you have to have a two income home,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and so I don't know if that has like the evolution of
hard to
the
say.
roles.
There absolutely is truth, though, to say that your lived experiences do impact that. And so I should have brought a picture, but when we have a consult, I often show people a hormone hierarchy. And if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs at all, he created a hierarchy of needs that's 5 levels deep. And to reach each level, you have to reach the levels in succession. So you have to reach level 1 first to reach level 2, 3, 4, 5. And there is a hormone hierarchy that is the same. And so your tier 1 hormones are oxytocin, insulin, and what's the last one?
All right, you're the
Cortisol,
doctor.
excuse me, cortisol. Yeah, I just went blank. Cortisol. So those are your tier 1 hormones, and then your top tier hormones are your sex hormones that we're talking about today: testosterone, estradiol, progesterone.
Top tier.
So the reason that those will decline, if you take the concept of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you have a tier 1 imbalance, you have imbalances everywhere. So when you have a tier 1 imbalance, whether it's insulin resistance or you're somebody who lives a high stress life, so trying to figure out what's happening to our country in November, where's my next meal coming from, which bill do I not have to pay this month? You do have mothers out of the home where they're not able to be the nurturing providers that they once were. So there's a lot of tier 1 imbalance. And so that I think may kind of resonate with what you're saying, is that things aren't the way they used to be. So when you have a tier 1 imbalance or you have overproduction of cortisol, your stress hormone, everything else downstream is out of whack. And what's downstream is what I fix. Thyroid hormone, melatonin, which is your sleep hormone, and then those sex hormones that we're talking about today.
Cool.
Now,
So-
see, in one thing I didn't mention, probably in the last 3 years or so, all of a sudden I've started having trouble sleeping, and which I used to be, and he used to make fun of me. As soon as my head hit the pillow, I was out and wasn't going to be up for at least 6-7 hours, no problem. And now, in the last few years, sometimes I'll have a whole week where I barely sleep, and he's like, "What's wrong? What happened?" I'm like, I just can't sleep. Like, you can't explain it. You just know it's not going to happen.
The
And usually
roles
that's-
have reversed, because
that's
I
why-
used to be the non-sleeper, and now I sleep just fine. And
usually it's things like that cause people to seek my care. I said the sexual performance is always just a bonus because it's that kind of quality of life stuff. People are like, Haley, I can't sleep and I have no energy. That's usually why people come see me, because they're not sleeping. And when you're not sleeping, that's miserable. So
Yeah, I've been having
hormone-
trouble sleeping really bad lately.
I might be able to hook you up. Come see me. Let's check your levels.
Actually, I just got mine checked. They said everything was cool. So
But is everything cool, or what's the number? You're within the lab reference range of normal. I want to know the number.
I don't remember.
That's what's important.
I know this, though. That just fits into what you were talking about earlier. He's got a piece of paper, and it has numbers on it. And the doctor, I'm not knocking them. I know who it is. He's very, very,
Yeah.
Sure.
very knowledgeable. But they look at that piece of paper. Nope, normal.
Well, and a lot of that has to do with insurance and the educational path that someone follows. So it's absolutely not to knock what I call mainstream medical providers. It's not that they're bad providers or they're negligent. We just really truly aren't taught hormones in school or nutrition. It's just really not something that's hit heavily upon. So most of the education that I have on hormones is knowledge that I've sought out on my own. I have additional certifications outside of just my nurse practitioner degree and license.
So what I was saying is like they're treating the monitor, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
But when I went, so I didn't really get in depth, but when I went and had my hormones checked, they did the full blood panel and I asked them to do the testosterone. And the range at the doctor's office that I was going to was 300 to 900. And so that's a little different. But I was at like 320. And he said, can't help you. I can't.
And that's because insurance, because
Right.
you're within the lab reference range of
Right.
normal. And so insurance doesn't want to cover any kind of replacement for you. But I will also say when you're less than 400 in a man is truly when you're at risk for a whole lot of stuff. You're at risk. You have an overall increased risk of mortality. You're at risk for insulin resistance, obesity, cardiovascular disease. There's an increased risk of prostate cancer. And that's completely opposite of what we've been told about hormones. We've always been told hormones cause cancer. They're going to kill you. They're going to give you a heart attack. No, they're not. Not when they're managed appropriately, not when it's medically supervised, not when you are having somebody monitor labs. Again, you can achieve wellness, and that number is different for everyone. Where do you feel good? If you have all the symptoms and you're at 450, 450 is not right for you, man. That's not right for you.
Where are you? Do you know? I was going to ask, do you know where you're at right now?
My last check was just under, like a couple points under 1100, which I feel great.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more that plays into rather than just that number.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people say, oh, what's my total testosterone? But really, there's a whole lot more that plays into it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more labs that you truly have to look at to actually figure out what's going on from a hormone perspective. Because the number that we're talking about total testosterone.
Right.
But what's your free testosterone?
Yeah,
Because
I don't
free
remember.
Is
yeah.
what your body will take in.
It's what's free. It's what's freely flowing
Available.
through your system. It's what's available. And there's another hormone called SHBG, or sex hormone binding globulin, and that number goes up and down based on various different factors. And if your sex hormone binding globulin is high, because you have poorly controlled diabetes or you're morbidly obese, your sex hormone binding globulin is going to be high, which means just because you have 950 total testosterone, if your binding globulin is high, all of that 950 is bound. It's not free. It's not, your body doesn't feel it.
So is there
there's
something you can do to fix that?
Absolutely. That's lifestyle modification. So I also am very big on, in my practice, my goal is to balance those tier 1 hormones that we talked about, the oxytocin, insulin, and cortisol. My goal is to help people make the lifestyle modification necessary to balance those for the long term, to try to help support your natural production so the rest of it will kind of follow suit. And that is where diet and fitness comes into play. You've got to move your body.
Which
The body
kind
is
of
meant to be in motion.
leads me to why we're actually here today.
Exactly.
I mean, we
Exactly.
wanted to
Goes hand in hand.
have you in here to get information out to the people about what you do, but we also wanted to announce that kind of I don't know if we want to call it a partnership
Sure.
or a friendship between Indie Fitness and, how do you say the name? Is it Brio?
Brio Med Spa.
Brio Med Spa. We are going to have a little, I don't know, I guess we should have nailed this down, maybe a seminar or
Sure.
Information fair.
an
Sure.
information fair.
We'll
where
talk
we're-
about whatever the people want to talk about.
Right, and
Wellness.
we're going to do that, December 14th.
Yep.
And I think that this is perfect timing because
New Year's resolution.
New Year's resolution, if you, I'm not knocking New Year's resolutioners because I give myself a New Year's resolution every year. It used to have to do with I want to lose X amount of pounds, and now it's more of a goal of like this New Year's resolution this year was to remind myself daily that, and we've said this several times on here, that comparison is the thief of joy.
Right.
I start comparing myself to a 35-year-old guy,
Me?
and makes me feel bad about myself, right? So I'm 50, you're 35, we're not the same. When I compare myself to you, then it just hurts my feelings.
I do the same with you. So it's fine.
But with the New Year's resolutioners, a lot of them, they want to come in here and their goal is, I want to lose 25 pounds. I want to be able to bench press or squat this amount. Some of the females is like, I want to be able to run a 5K. I mean, I want my booty to grow
I was just
4
gonna say,
inches. I mean,
that booty.
we hear all these things, and then we watch them come in here with, I mean, passion and conviction that this is it. This is the time. And then
Couple weeks.
probably
month.
75 to 80% are gone within the first 2 months. And then there are those that achieve their goals.
Yeah, they
there
do.
are those. But if they were to come in to see you around that time, maybe come to on the 14th, come here to Indy Fitness and listen to you talk, get information and an understanding of how the program works, and they go get their consultation and they get on their hormone replacement if it's needed or however that works, and then they start the gym around the first of the year, they are going to be
Thriving.
far and
Killing it.
away in a better starting point
Sure.
than they could ever
Because you
imagine.
feel good. And so I very much, with my practice, adopt a wellness first, vanity second approach. My goal is to help people be well first and foremost. And so I think when you really adopt that mindset and you shift your focus from what do I look like, you shift your focus to, am I going to live longer? Am I going to feel this good at 60, 70? When you shift your focus to making it for wellness and longevity, I think it's a lot easier to stay motivated. And so I really do love when people have goals that aren't necessarily something physical, so much as is it like a quality of life improvement, because it's a lot easier to adhere to. And so, specifically with when we make lifestyle change, I don't put anybody on a diet. We don't call it a diet. It's kind of like a resolution. I don't want to call it a New Year's resolution because it needs to be a lifestyle change. So we don't put people on diets. We put people on meal plans. Because to diet is to insinuate that you're going to do this until you lose that 30 pounds and then you're going to go back to your old ways. And when you do that, guess what? You're going right back to the old you, and it's nobody's fault but your own.
Yeah.
So you really have to adopt the lifestyle change.
One of the things, and I don't know if you've got your details hammered out yet, and if not, that's fine. But me and Julie have talked about it, and anyone that comes as a new customer from your spa, like they go see you, they set up the meeting, consultation, they do all that. If they're interested in coming to the gym, we're going to give you a voucher for them that they can come here and get their first month free.
We love that. We love that.
Because I think that the two things go hand in hand, that this is such a great partnership or friendship between our two businesses that we can literally watch people's lives change.
Right.
And that is so, I've told you this before, listeners here on the podcast, when Julie and I started this gym, and I told someone the other day this story who was a businessman, and I said, you're going to think this is a horrible business model, but we never opened the gym to make money. That was
To help
never on our radar.
Sure.
Here's
It
the
was-
thing, we didn't have a business plan or a business model. I
We
mean,
just-
that's just
Winging
it. We just didn't want the gym to close.
And we wanted people who needed and wanted to be here to be able to still come here.
So I think it's really hard. We were talking about, people come in and they'll be here for, maybe 60 days and then they give it up. But if people don't feel good, it's really hard to stick with something. If they're not sleeping or if they don't have energy, at the end of the day, it's really easy to make an excuse to say, oh, well, I'll start next week. So when people are energized and they feel good, they're a lot more motivated to come. Not to mention, if you're somebody who's in the gym and you're not seeing the gains that you think you should be, if you're like, man, I'm hitting it hard, I'm doing everything my trainer's saying, I'm doing the right reps and I'm doing the right weights, but you're not making the gains, it could be a hormone deficiency. And so when your testosterone is optimized, you're going to make gains in the gym, both men and women. When you're where you're supposed to be, it is, in essence, anabolic. So it can cause muscle growth. So if you're doing any kind of strength training whatsoever at all, and your testosterone is low, you're going to struggle to lose the fat mass and gain the muscle mass that you're wanting to.
So before testosterone, my muscles were growing,
Sure.
but at a very, very slow pace. It would take me months to go up 5 pounds on a lift.
Right.
After testosterone, it was way quicker, way quicker. And I don't know where I would have been, but I know that this just sounds like I'm bragging, but I want people to understand that at 50 years old, I'm in, one of the strongest people in this gym, probably in the top at least 15. And that includes some very, very strong men. I mean, Hagen wins every time, right?
Yeah.
Every time. He's in here squatting 800 and hey dudes with no knee sleeves on the other day. And I believe that is partially my drive. You can take testosterone, you can take these hormones, and if you don't put in the work,
Right.
you're
still
not
not
going to
going to
see
see the
them.
result.
You're going to have some benefits for sure, and you're going to have a better quality of life. But you can maximize those benefits by going to the gym and working out.
I had one female patient in particular who came, she was in the gym, but her concern wasn't inability to gain muscle mass. It was more of, the quality of life stuff. But when she had her first follow-up, I always ask people, how's it going? What kind of improvements are you seeing? And one of the things she said was, my booty though. She's like, she's in the gym and, a lot of people are, especially women, are really working on their glutes. And so she was able, after getting her testosterone optimized, to see the gains that she had been working for. And she couldn't believe it, that just optimizing her testosterone a little bit really kind of helped her see that a lot quicker. And so when your hormones are optimized, it's a lot easier to lose the fat mass and gain the muscle mass that you desire.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you mentioned the fact that you don't put people on a diet, you put them on a meal plan.
Sure.
Because you can come in here and work out all you want, but if you go home and you're eating junk or if you're eating all processed foods, you just wasted all that time.
If you're somebody who tries to use this, well, I'm going to do good Monday through Friday and then reward myself on the weekend. Well, if you're giving it 80% Monday through Friday and 20% Saturday and Sunday, what's your average? What does that average out to? You can't, it truly needs to be a way of life. And, it's like, I'm not a fun hater. I'm not trying to take away people's joy all the time and say, if it tastes good, spit it out. But you can't eat bacon cheeseburgers and ice cream every day and expect to see the results that you want.
Unless you're
It'll catch up with you at
Unless-
some point.
Unless you're auto.
It'll
right.
change one of these days.
So one of the things you mentioned was insulin resistance. What can you explain to people who might be watching or listening what insulin resistance is?
The root of all evil. All of this, truly what we're talking about, it all stems back to insulin resistance. So much chronic disease, hormone deficiency, polycystic ovarian syndrome, depression, anxiety, so many things start with insulin resistance. And that goes back to that hormone hierarchy. You've got insulin, cortisol, and oxytocin as tier 1 hormones. And so if you have an imbalance in any of those, you have imbalances everywhere. So insulin specifically is a hormone that's released by the pancreas, and its purpose is to force glucose into the cell so it can be converted to energy, and it keeps it out of the blood flow. It keeps it out of the blood. You don't want it flowing through the blood because then you have excess sugar, and then that's diabetes. So you want glucose into the cell. And that's insulin's job. So those of us who live sedentary lifestyles, we like cheeseburgers and fried, processed, fatty stuff for every meal. Our bodies aren't designed to eat and process that crap on a routine basis. And so what happens is the pancreas is having to work harder and harder and harder to produce insulin to process all that glucose, and then inevitably we develop resistance. It's kind of like a tolerance. You have to have higher and higher and higher levels of insulin to process that glucose. And then when you have high levels of insulin, you have inflammation, you have weight gain, and it's just this revolving door. So you truly have to break the cycle somewhere. And so definite lifestyle change. You can't just be on hormones and think that you're just going to eat, all the things and everything's going to be okay.
You will still have some benefit, but it'll be minimal, right?
Sure.
So you, let's just say starting tomorrow, I want to eat differently. So you can tell me exactly what to.
So generally, if somebody comes for me for like a weight management, medically supervised weight management, we start kind of with the basics. I do require patients to keep a food log. That's the best way I'm going to be able to help you. You can't come in and say, oh, I'm eating in a deficit every day. Haley, prove it. Because once you write it down, you realize that you're consuming a whole lot more than what you should be. And there's a whole lot of us around here consuming 3,000 to 4,000 carbs a day, calories, and not moving our bodies. And then we wonder why 10 years goes by and we've gained 20 pounds. Hello? You can't eat in a surplus every day because it's ounces every single day. So generally, we start kind of basic. With just the basics, because I don't like to overwhelm people. If somebody comes and sees me, I can't say, okay, you have to go see Chad and Julie at the gym for an hour and a half every single day of the week. You can eat ice and lettuce from here on out. People are going to throw in the towel. So we definitely start low and slow, and we start with a general high protein, low carb diet, and then we review that food log and we make modifications to that specific patient. We do calculate ideal body weight. We can take measurements. And we determine, how many calories you need to consume each day in order to be in a deficit or a surplus. It really just kind of depends on, what your goals are. Of course, if you're bulking or, you're trying to lose fat, your goals are different. So we do take all those things into consideration.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So what other services do you offer at your
All the fun
spa?
stuff. So as I said, I specialize in bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. So sex hormones, estradiol, testosterone, and progesterone in women, and testosterone alone in men. I do medically supervised weight loss, so sometimes that's simply putting people on a meal plan and exercise regimen. But I do use some medications, the GLP-1s that are kind of all the rage right now. I do use those, and the reason that those are helping people is because they're addressing insulin resistance, and so thereby it's reducing inflammation in the body. You're going to have a really hard time losing weight and gaining muscle mass when you're full of inflammation. And so I already got off on a tangent and forgot what the original question
So
was.
what other services do you have there?
Services.
I know you
So-
talked a little bit about the skin.
Do the weight loss. I manage a lot of thyroid. Your thyroid hormone has to be optimized. You're going to have a lot of different issues. I do IV hydration. And then truly helping people a lot with gut health. And then I do have an esthetician, Lauren, who's a miracle worker. She's amazing. If you've never had a facial with her, you've got to come see her. But she does aesthetics. So that's things like facials, microneedling. She does laser hair removal. We can do sunspot removal, red spot removal, lashes, brows, waxing. She's basically just a saint. So that's the aesthetics piece of it. And then we kind of partner a lot because Lauren has an interest in a lot of wellness with a holistic approach also. So she really aims to help people treat issues of the skin holistically. Instead of saying, hey, here's a medication to put on your acne, let's take into consideration that you're eating pro-inflammatory foods every day. So her and I work really well together to help people in that capacity because we definitely prefer a holistic approach.
I have a feeling I'm going to spend a lot of money up there.
Give her the credit card, sir.
She,
was
has
gonna-
it
Go
her-
see
she makes more money than I do.
I was gonna say that's pretty cool, you Julie, to come and just, talk about that stuff and start the journey like that.
Well, we're going to see how it goes. I'm not good at just putting everything out there.
I'll pull it out of you.
So,
Pull it out of you.
Yeah. So a lot of times when people come see me, they're like, I don't know what I want from you. Just so and so at work told me to come see you. Well, I will pull it out of you. I know what questions to ask and how to figure out how to help people. And one of the joys of my job is it's not cookie cutter.
Right.
I've got over 600 patients in my practice, and there's no two that are treated the same. Everybody's different. And so that's what I consider one of the true joys of my job is because if you come sit in my chair and then you come sit in my chair, you have two completely different goals of therapy. And so your treatment plan will be very specific to what your goals are. If your plan is simply to jump out of an airplane, then, I'm going to help you reach that goal. But if your goal is, Haley, I want to live longer, I want to feel this good at 80, we'll develop a treatment plan to help you get there. And we can use any combination of those services to help people truly achieve whole body wellness.
Kind of made me think of something that I've talked to people, and you mentioned it earlier that a lot of people, there's a stigma that if you get on hormone replacement, that it could cause cancer, could make you have a heart attack or a stroke, and this may not be the best advertisement for it, because I don't believe that it does those things. I've done enough research to realize that that's not how it works, and a lot of the problem is the doctors that have put a patient on testosterone and then they develop prostate cancer. They don't understand the why,
Right.
just the final result.
Right.
And so I don't believe those to be facts, but my thoughts have always been, if I had to go back to how I felt when I was 40
Risk versus benefit.
to how I feel now at 50, and you told me that by doing it, which you're not saying this, just to be clear, she is not saying this. This is just my example. If you told me that you get to feel great versus how you felt 10 years ago, but it's going to take 10 years off your life, I'd do it.
It's worth it for a lot of people. But it is true to say hormones, they don't cause cancer. Correlation does not equal causation. And I think that whole myth came about in the early 2000s. There was a study that came out, and it studied specifically Prempro. It's synthetic hormones that are given to women is where the risk is. But that study came out and created this mass hysteria that said, hey, hormones cause cancer. And so we're still dealing with the fallout of that today. But hormones, when managed appropriately, actually are definitely protective of the brains, bone, breast, the heart, the prostate, when managed appropriately. And again, correlation does not equal causation. Just because you're on testosterone and you develop prostate cancer does not mean that the testosterone caused it. It may have been there, and the testosterone may bring it to light,
Yep.
just like a breast cancer in a woman. Just because you're taking hormones and you develop breast cancer, it's not the hormones, but the hormones could have brought it to light.
Like, it was already there, it just caused it to grow a little bit
Right,
quicker.
right,
Yep. So you were going to face the problem either way.
right. But it is true to say, you know, it is a controversial industry. What I do every day that I go to work, I know that what I'm doing is very controversial, but I believe in it. I read the literature, the same literature that's available to anybody out there truly has access to literature. But when you truly look at it and you read it and you understand it, you realize the benefits that hormone optimization has. And I often pose the question, do our hormones decline because we age, or do we age because our hormones decline? And I very much believe it's the latter. You absolutely age because your hormones decline. And so, you know, I don't like to call it biohacking, but, you know, I think that so many people in the United States, there's this push to make people live longer. But who wants to live longer when the last 20 years of your life are in a nursing home? And that kind of goes back to the point you just made. Like, Haley, the way I feel today with my testosterone optimized is worth living 10 shorter years, even though that's not truly, you know, what's going to happen. But it's about quality of life. And when we shift our perspective to quality over quantity, everything changes.
I know a lot of people my age, and like when we went on a date weekend a couple weeks ago, Julie got carded for alcohol, and they weren't being flat. It was a young lady. She was not trying to flatter her. She's like, I need to
Flash that
see your
proudly.
ID, but we were at a restaurant, and I ordered the signature cocktail, and she was dressed very nicely, hair done perfectly, of course.
Okay.
She always is. Just stop. We go to this restaurant, and I'm not saying that Julie, to me, doesn't look 20 years old. I'm not trying to convince anyone of that. But when she's dressed a certain way, her hair's done a certain way, the lighting's just right, no one would ever guess that she's 52 years old, right? She's 52 years old. I know I just told everybody in the world how old you are, but the lady was like, no, I'm serious. Give me your ID. She's
Yeah.
like, we have
Yes,
3
ma'am.
grandkids. You know, we have three grandkids. I don't, you know, but my point of that is saying is like, so she's feeling this certain way now, but I can remember when she, you know, was pregnant, 8 months pregnant, and her blood pressure is still 105 over 65. You know, she's been in really good health. She eats a lot of greens, a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits. She watches what she eats, and she's
It's a big
taking
part
care
of
of
it.
herself. But now she can go back to feeling that way again,
Sure.
and maybe even better than that.
Even better.
Watch out, Chad.
Just for the record, they said that they needed to cart anyone that looked under 40. So not 21, but under 40.
Okay, well, they didn't ask me for my ID, and I'm 2 years younger than you. So anyway, let's get back to this. On the 14th, we're going to have a seminar here, Indy Fitness. It's going to be free to anyone who wants to come. We'll have some chairs set up. We probably even, I know my wife, she'll have refreshments.
We'll have snacks. Don't worry. We'll have snacks.
She can't have an event without something to eat and drink for everyone. We'll have the door unlocked. Everybody can come in. We'll take some opportunity for you to listen to Haley talk. We might even have one of our personal trainers come in and talk. Something else that he's working on is, a lot of times when people come to the gym, they don't know how to use a machine. We're working on putting QR codes on the machines where you can walk up, take a picture of that, take you to a YouTube video that shows you exactly how to use that specific machine from one of our personal trainers. We might have him come in and talk a little bit about personal
that's
training.
great.
I think that doing this 2 weeks before the end of the year,
It's prime time.
listen, you won't have an excuse. Your hormones will be optimized. You'll have a free month of gym membership potentially. You'll have QR codes that you can look at and watch how to use every machine. You can learn a simple routine on YouTube. We might even put out some generic workouts for people who are just getting started to understand what muscles to work on what days, how much cardio. We might even make some papers for a food log. I want to set people up for success.
And I love that we've decided to partner in this way to promote wellness in the community. And I will say I love the QR code idea because in talking to patients every day, one of the fears of coming in the gym is, and it's my fear too, I don't know how to use this stuff. And so for a lot of my patients specifically, I think that will be really beneficial. And so I am really kind of excited to do that. And if there's any topics in particular that anybody wants to talk about, just shoot Chad or Julie or Nick or myself a message, and I'll make sure that I'm prepared for that discussion. But we'll have more information in the weeks to come kind of about what that looks like. But I am excited to see how we can partner and maybe keep people motivated.
So let's say keep track of our social media because there's going to be more information coming out. We will promote it as heavily as we can. That's one of my shortcomings is I like the podcast. I have all these big ideas to promote it every week, and then I get super duper busy and I'm swamped, and that isn't high on the priority list. I'm going to make this a priority. This will be advertised on Indy Fitness page, my personal page, All Roads Lead to the Gym page. We'll probably see if we can get Devin to pump it out on Devin Packett Personal Training. He is, the personal trainer in here that's I've said it a million times, the busiest. Yeah. I don't know that he's the best, but he's the busiest, and usually those two things go together.
He knows what he's talking about.
He does, and
he really
has one success story after another. He has one lady who was in here just a few days ago telling me how she had now hit well over 100 pounds lost. Yeah, and she's just killing it in the gym.
Yeah.
So,
and he's passionate about.
Well, the other thing I'll say is once you start, if it's simply a weight loss journey, once you get started and you start moving your body,
it's on.
You start craving that, and you realize that the body was always designed to be in motion in the first place. And so you guys probably see this a lot here, but so often people, they start to crave it, and then when they miss their workouts, they can feel the difference because
us big time.
The body it craves that.
I get angry.
Me too.
And ladies, I can testify that if you come in here and start moving some weight, you are not going to get big and bulky. I lift weights 3 to 5 days a week. Nothing about me is big and bulky. Okay?
It's strength.
It's strength. And which I need, which I feel benefits me in so many different ways to make sure. It used to be I wanted to make sure I could be an active mom. Now I want to make sure I can be an active grandma and be able to play with the kids and
And healthy as
And
we
healthy,
age.
yeah.
So we need healthy bones and healthy muscles. You know, as women, we're at risk for osteoporosis as we age,
Yep.
but there's also something called sarcopenia, so muscle wasting. So that's our structure. Our muscle and our bones are what keep us upright. And so I think just having strength in those muscles as we age, it's good for cardiovascular health. It's good for preventing fractures, which increases your overall risk of mortality as we age. So it's definitely, truly, again, wellness. It's being well and how you feel, and not so much about what you look like.
Awesome.
Exactly.
So I want to say thank you for being here today, being
for
our
having
guest. It was good conversation. Julie, you did great on your
Yeah.
debut as a co-host.
I'm glad you
Yes.
chose today.
We'll see if it happens anymore. No, I'll be here again because I want to give you guys updates on my journey and what my test results are and where we go from there.
Okay.
So
Well, she gonna put it
I will
all.
just
Yeah.
add to that, you know, and Julie's told you all that she's going to start her journey, and just to say what that looks like, you can't just come see me and say, hey, I want testosterone.
Yeah.
You know, Indie Fitness sent me here. That's not how it works. We do make sure that it is healthy, and we make sure that there's no contraindications. We'll go over a risk and benefit profile, side effect, and health history absolutely does have an impact. So we do start with a pretty comprehensive lab panel to make sure that it is healthy for one to undergo hormone optimization, and then together we would work together to develop a treatment plan, and then hopefully get people in the gym and moving their body to where this truly becomes a way of life for people.
You know, it might have been you. We were talking not too long ago that Independence, you know, this area of Kansas is very unhealthy as a whole.
Very. The United States in general, we're one of the most unhealthy nations in the world and the most heavily medicated
Yeah.
nations in the world. And there's a reason for it. You know, other countries look at us and, I mean, I hate to say it, but we're kind of the laughing stock of the world because we're horribly unhealthy. And it's just, we're trying to undo a lifetime of what I call indoctrination and unhealthy habits.
Going against the grain.
Going against the grain. That's me.
I want. Can I get a Brio
sneeze.
shirt to wear
I
here?
would love to give you a Brio
I will
Med
lit-
Spa.
yeah,
Yes, I will
I
give
will
you
wear it
all
here.
a Brio Med Spa t-shirt. We do
Awesome.
have them.
Yes.
They're cute. They're
I've seen
gold. They
them.
have our little logo on the back. They say restoring wellness from the inside out, because that truly is our goal. And I look forward to partnering with you
The
all.
only way
helping
I'm
people.
wearing that shirt is if you wear an Indie Fitness shirt. We've got them out on the
Yeah.
rack right now. So.
Perfect. I
Yeah.
love that.
So, again, December 14th, I'm going to go ahead and put a time at 10 a.m. because if someone watches this and doesn't follow back up, 10 a.m. on December 14th, come
on a
here.
Saturday.
It's a Saturday. The door will be unlocked. You'll
We
be
will
able to
be
come
here.
right in. We'll be here. We'll go into the aerobic room set up. You can take a tour of the gym. You can find out about memberships and discounts that we may have. But kind of an open house day where we also bring in our friend Haley, and she's going to talk to us, and we'll see if we can't get some of the other trainers here as well as Devin.
I like it.
And I think it'll be a good time. So, and hey, we've got Marco in the building for the first time in a good month. We've been doing it without him, and I just ship it to him, and he does all his little editing
Ship
and
it to
everything. And I have to usually call
Via
him and
mail.
say, hey, how do I move this over here? And he's like, all right, dumbass. Just how many times do I have to tell you this? But happy to have Marco in the building today. We got to get him back on his weight loss, weightlifting journey. He's been slacking a little bit. Devin told on you. So it's out there. So if you guys see Marco, let him know he needs to get his butt back in a gym. And also probably soon we'll have him on here. He wants to tell more of his story. And it's a very interesting story. I wish we would have got more into it. But anyway, until next time, we'll see you. All roads lead to the gym. See you next time.
Thanks for having me.